Welcome to the Pre to Post Transplant Podcast, a podcast that brings personal stories from transplant survivors, their families, friends, and loved ones. This is where you will hear challenges and triumphs of everyone involved in this journey. Our guests will offer wisdom, advice, and inspiration on everything you want to know about transplant. My name is Jenny McFarland. I am a transplant survivor, and this is a podcast I wish I had before and immediately following my transplant. Thank you for listening. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Pre to Post Transplant Podcast. My goodness, has it been a minute since we've had an episode? But I do have a great episode tonight. It's a little bit different than normal. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the transplant games because it's coming up in less than a month. I'm so excited. I'm currently working on the Pre to Post Transplant Foundation's booth and getting everything ready for that, and also getting ready for the podcast to be there. So if you're going to be at the transplant games and you listen to this podcast, please stop by and record a little something on the podcast. I had a couple episodes for the transplant games for the 2022 games. And I love those two episodes because there's so many different people on there and they have all different stories, and it's really heartwarming and great to hear all those stories. And I love meeting new people, especially people who listen to the podcast. So if you're going to be at the transplant games, please stop by the Pre to Post booth and I'll have some goodies for you, and the foundation will have goodies for you. And just say, hey, Jenny, listen to your podcast, and we'll get you on. So speaking of the transplant games, I really want to get somebody here to talk about their experience with the transplant games. I know a couple of people who go a lot. I've reached out to them, so I'm hoping that they reply back soon. And I want to hear like great stories from the transplant games because I've only been there once. And I was there with the foundation. I spent most of my time at the booth. I did play cornhole, which, it's super fun. It's not really that, athletic. That's okay. It's still challenging. I'm going to do it again this year. So hopefully we come out with the gold. And I'm just so excited. And I can't wait to hear more stories from people who've been there a lot. So if you've been to the transplant games and you want to come on the show, reach out to me and let me know so we can get you on. Okay, so let's talk about my guest today. I have a unique guest. This is a pre-transplant story, so kind of pre-transplant, and I'll let her get into it. I will mention, and I did mention at the first part of the episode, that Morgan wears oxygen. She's when she has her transplant, she'll be getting a lung transplant. And if you've had a lung transplant, you know exactly what the sound is with her oxygen on pulse. If you've never had a transplant or you've never been around somebody who wears oxygen, when we wear oxygen and it's going, there's a different setting called pulse setting, and it gives you oxygen whenever you take a breath in. And you can hear that throughout the episode. And if you're not used to it, then you might notice it in the beginning, but the more you listen to it, the more it'll just fade off into the background. You won't hear it. And it's really not that loud. It's just, if you're wondering what that extra little sound is, that's what it is. Morgan and I tried to do this podcast the first time, but her voice is so soft because of her condition that it was really hard to hear her, and I couldn't edit it to make it sound good for you to hear. So we redid it, changed a few things, and it sounds pretty good now. I did lower my voice on the podcast just so that you can, if you need to turn up the volume, then my voice isn't overpowering hers. So my voice is a little bit lower than normal just to match hers, just so you're aware of that. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump into the episode. I'm going to let Morgan tell you her lifelong, incredible story. And I hope you love it. And let's get into it. So help me welcome my guest, Morgan Nuchols. Hi, Morgan. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Hi. So you're on actually again, but nobody could hear the first time because something happened with the audio and we weren't able to get it. So this is our second time around.
Yeah.
So I am lucky. I get to hear your story twice before everybody else. So when we first talked the first time, I didn't realize that you didn't have a transplant yet, and it kind of threw me off a little bit, but you have a great story because you've been through so much. So let's just go ahead and start from the beginning. And we'll just point out now that your voice is very soft spoken.
Yep.
And so turn up the volume. And the little brisk of air you hear is from um,
Yes.
your oxygen tubing, which anybody who's had a lung transplant understands what that sound is. So it's not a big deal. So let's start from the beginning, right when you were conceived.
So I was born with severe left CDH, so it's congenital diaphragmatic hernia. Organs were up in the lung cavity to prevent the lungs to grow normally.
And so did they know that before you were born, or did they find that out after?
That was a surprise when I was born. The
Oh,
doctor recognized it by my signs. So I was trying to cry, get air, but no sound was coming to get air. So I
okay.
turned blue
Oh, yeah. That's because all the
and
other,
limped.
yeah, all the other organs were blocking your airway.
Yeah, the stomach, into some intestines, the spleen were all up in my lung cavity.
Yeah.
So my little left lung uh, was the smallest. It was like a coin size, 25 cent or a fingernail.
Okay.
Now it's just 50% and functions less than 50%.
Oh, okay. So when you were a baby, and you turned blue and you went limp, what did they do? How did they, you know, fix that?
Um, they called in the respiratory tech to help get my a breathing tube in. And that took about 5 minutes. My parents recorded everything, so my birth video is the longest.
Oh, have you
It
seen it?
showed all of that. Yeah, I have.
Oh, wow.
That's
That'd
a
be
mix of
interesting.
CDH, PH, like a horror story, basically.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so let's can I have that video and I'll put it out on YouTube? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I have pieces of it on my YouTube page.
Oh, you do? Oh, you have a
Yeah,
YouTube page. Oh, there, something I didn't know from last time. Very cool. Okay, so when did they learn about all of these problems after you were born? Like, how long did it take? Obviously, not right away because you couldn't breathe and they were focusing on that, but
right. So after getting the breathing tube in, I was I had a I had a helicopter ride to another hospital where a surgeon back in 1993 knew about congenital diaphragmatic hernia and how to repair it.
okay,
So I needed ECMO um, for 7 days after
okay.
birth. I was placed on it at 3 hours old once I was at that hospital. And I learned from Grandpa that he and Dad watched it be placed on me.
Oh, really? Oh,
So
wow. They were
Grandpa told me that
probably
recently.
they were probably scared out of their mind watching that, a little tiny baby.
Yeah.
Were you born
So
early or were you right on time?
30, 38 weeks, so like 2 weeks early.
Oh, okay. And
So
they
not too
couldn't tell
bad.
anything before, like they had no idea.
No, they did ultrasounds, but I kept blocking the camera.
Oh, you're
So
camera shy.
I was blocking the whole, giant hole,
Okay.
basically.
All right. So you get your first helicopter ride when you're just a few hours old.
Yep.
Um, how far away was that hospital that they took you to?
Um, two and a
Do you know?
half, almost 3 hours away.
Oh, okay.
Some more northern area of California, not so south.
Yeah. So you were on ECMO for 7 days, and then
Mhm.
after,
Then I was taken off of it before my first CDH repair. I had a patch placed, stitched in, healed nicely from that. By 3 months old, I was taken home for the first time.
okay,
Um, around Halloween. So I made it for my brother's second birthday.
Okay.
Um, his birthday is on Halloween, so I
Oh,
know. Yeah.
interesting. Okay. And he didn't have any issues?
No,
No, just you. You're the
healthy.
lucky one.
Out of the four kids, I'm the only CDH one
Okay.
with PH and
Yeah.
everything else.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I
Um,
didn't have any siblings. Well, not
mm,
any, like, I had a half sister later on in life, but I was the only one with all of the health issues. So I was
God.
the lucky one, you know. I got the most attention anyway.
So yeah, I had the most operations and appointments.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you did. So, when they took you home, how was your, like, how were you doing when they took you home?
I was doing good. Oxygen, of course, 24/7. And then I had the NJ tube through the
Mhm.
nose and stomach for feeds
Yeah.
while still learning bottle feed. But I, from CDH, common to not hold on to weight and grow. So we burn a lot of calories.
Yeah.
Kind of mentioned about this last time, first time around.
Yeah.
Um, but I was doing good. But then 5 weeks later, I had pneumonia for the first time.
Oh, pneumonia, you said?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for the first time.
Okay. 5 weeks
Um,
later.
yeah, right before or right after Thanksgiving.
Okay. And
So
what
then,
happened there? I'm sure you probably ended up back in the hospital.
yes, I did. I went back into the hospital. They did an X-ray to see how my lungs handled that, and they noticed the first patch came undone, the
Oh,
first diaphragm patch.
yeah.
So once I was fully healed from pneumonia, um, I had my second patch placed over the original patch. The surgeon did see that some diaphragm muscle did grow, which is great. So that
Yeah.
was helpful for the second patch.
Okay.
I was healing well from that.
Yeah.
I eat much easier than I think each time I healed great with each repair from that.
Okay.
But I ended up contracting RSV from another NIC baby.
Oh,
So that put more damage to my little lungs that were trying to grow.
yeah.
And probably at that time, my lungs were at 1.5 lungs, still growing
Yeah.
to be normal. But then they got scarred by that, and contaminated albuterol damaged them even more.
Yeah. I'm contaminated albuterol from the hospital. So
Yeah,
I want to talk a little bit about that. I don't think we talked about it too much last time, but
no, no,
um, so they gave you contaminated albuterol,
they
which,
didn't know it was contaminated until
okay,
I got worse, basically, getting the CPAP type machine.
right. And so, like, do you know how many, like, how much of their albuterol in the hospital was contaminated? Like, were they giving it to other people too? Or,
Other babies,
yeah,
most likely.
yeah.
Um, so there's a childhood court stuff with that
Oh, okay.
under my mom's name, and still trying to figure that out.
Oh, you're still working on that. Oh,
Yeah,
wow. So is there like a big, what is it, like a class action type of thing going on or no?
with Upper Dural Company, but I was a kid. So I and other NICU babies at that hospital got a good chunk of dollars from Upper Dural Company.
Oh, okay. And that you say that that's still kind of going on as far as,
Yeah, it's kind of on the back burner because still back and forth if to go
and how long ago
certificate.
was that? Do you mind if I ask you how old you are?
I'm almost 31.
Okay. Yeah,
Next month I'll be 31.
that's a long, 30 years. That's a long time. Yeah.
Well,
Wow. Okay. That sucks that they gave you that, I guess. I mean, I'm sure that that made it so much worse. So what happened after that, like with the scarring?
the scarring did trigger chronic bronchitis.
Okay.
And on the infant paperwork, it also mentioned reactive airway disease.
Oh,
So that might also contribute to voice volume range.
yeah. And so you're dealing with all these medical problems already. You're not even a year old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's crazy. So what happens, um, after all that kind of settled down? I mean, do you still have chronic bronchitis like right t till today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kept stable because when the pulmonologist doctor looked back on my history, when I first started going to UCLA as a kid, they did a test in 2006.
Okay.
It's the like the blood flow to the lungs. It's the same as my recent last few years of PFTs. So
Oh,
nothing's
okay.
changed.
Nothing changed. And how old were you when you went for that?
For that 2006, I was 12,
12 years old.
around the time of my scoliosis repair, which is another common CDH issue.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. When did you have that done?
Scoliosis repair, St. Patrick's Day, 2006.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it was curving over my heart and little left lung.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So how'd that surgery go? I mean, what was that like? Like,
I don't remember much of it, and there's not much photos, just beforehand of eating ice cream and stuff.
right.
Um, got a gift from my dad's work.
Yeah.
My first laptop.
Yeah.
Like,
So
okay.
it wasn't like terrible. It wasn't like
Well, I
you
had a
didn't,
back brace for about 6 months, but it didn't help.
oh, it
So I
didn't,
remember the back. I remember the back brace because it wasn't just up
uncomfortable.
against me.
Yeah. Were you
Um,
going to like therapy and stuff too? Or just wearing the brace?
I think just wearing the brace to see if it would help,
Yeah.
but it didn't. So,
And so why did that happen?
um, well, it's very common for CDHers to have from not enough muscle
Oh, I
on
see.
either side of the body,
Okay.
with the diaphragm on one side not being correctly formed
Right.
or developed.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
lack of muscle on one side of the body.
Right. And so you said you were like 12 when that was going on?
When that was fixed, it was first noticed more with my shoulders, age 10.
Oh, okay. So how are you? I mean, I know you were on oxygen from right from the start,
Yeah.
and you're a little kid and you're growing up, and I'm sure that you're just kind of used to things happening because it's just uh, the only thing that you've known.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like left out as a kid because you had all these medical problems and you couldn't like be
Um,
normal, I guess they would call normal people. I hate using
not,
that word,
not
but
totally. I did try out some basic sports. I did like 6 months of softball, but
okay.
then I passed out. So it's like, okay, I was off the oxygen on that at that time.
Oh, okay.
Then I tested hula, but I was kind of stage fright. So it's like, no, I don't want to do the Christmas dancing on the stage thing with
Yeah.
other kids.
Yeah.
Um, then I was doing brownies or Girl Scouts and then up. So I did that activity with other girls in my grade,
Yeah.
even though I was the oldest, but still.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
um,
that's good. I mean, you were doing some normal stuff.
yeah, but I tested those two things first, continued the Girl Scouts brownies first grade to fifth grade until they said no more. Um, but then I tested piano, which was also on the stage. So I was a little better looking at the keyboard or
Yeah.
keys, piano keys, and at the book to know which keys to click. I'm not
Yeah.
really looking at the audience too much,
Right.
watching me play.
Yeah.
So I did that for maybe 2 years,
Okay.
and that was it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you said you were off of oxygen for that time.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I was back on it for the piano, but I was off of it age 6 and 7
Okay.
and some of 8 before March 2002. And I had
Okay.
to be back on it 24/7 to unknown time.
Okay. So why were you able to get off? I mean, were your
I
lungs
was,
improving or
um, maybe maybe I had more immune system built.
yeah.
Lungs were keeping stable with my eating, um, maintaining my weight and growing at a good pace. Um, Even with a few seizures, but it wasn't really connected to my pH, which my last teacher confirmed that.
Yeah.
So I don't,
Okay.
I still used it for bedtime. So laying down,
Yeah.
and whenever I had a common bug or something, I put it back on.
Yeah.
And then mountain trips, also, same thing, putting it back
Oh,
on 24/7.
yeah, I remember that. I remember if I ever went up to, well, I live in a high altitude. I lived in Albuquerque, which is almost as high as Denver. It's just a little bit
Mm,
lower. But anytime I went up into the mountains or even into Denver, like I was a full time, like I needed to take oxygen because it's just
yeah.
so hard to breathe in the higher altitude. And then when I went to Houston, when I started my transplant process, or actually anytime I went to like sea level,
Mm,
I could breathe so much better. And everybody would always ask, doesn't the humidity bother you? And I'm like, no, because I'm at a lower altitude, so I can really breathe.
yeah. Yeah.
And when I was going for my transplant evaluations, like the meetings, my PFTs and my SAT
Mm,
level was always so much better there than it was at home in Albuquerque. And so it took a little bit longer to get listed for
yeah.
that
Yeah.
reason. So, but yeah, I totally understand that. So you're growing up with all these medical issues, but you're trying to live a normal life. And so what's the
Yeah.
next big thing that happened?
Well, after the scoliosis repair, but almost a year later, um, February 2007, fourth diaphragm hole was found. I had my third repair right before I turned 5,
Oh
so
wow.
long gap.
Yeah.
1998 until 2008, 2007.
Okay. Good 9 years. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
so they had to,
yeah, they fixed it again with a third patch. 8 centimeters of large intestine got kinked into that diaphragm hole like a
oh,
hose.
yeah.
So that portion of large intestines died. My pH went bad.
Yeah.
Um, so that was not totally CDH, but more of now I know chronic bronchitis, 1.5 lungs, and the pH going crazy of all of that going on with
Yeah.
the intestinal repairs and fourth hole being
Yeah.
fixed.
Wow. And so what was it like going through all these repairs? Like were they doing them laparoscopically or did they had to do an incision?
Each time they opened me up.
Yeah.
For the third repair, right before 3 days before I turned 5, that was a tummy scar, which was the smallest before it got bigger. But that was just 22 stitches, no extra patch, which was
Oh, okay.
nice.
Yeah.
Um, but then after the scoliosis repair, that little growth to stop growing maybe caused that fourth hole to happen, and the intestine went up and got kinked.
Oh, wow. And was it real painful, each one of those surgeries?
Um, I don't remember much, but the age almost age 5 one, I was upset by what the scrapbook's memory photos showed.
Yeah.
Um, Having a birthday in the hospital for the
Yeah.
first time, even though
Yeah.
birthday party weeks later, once I was fully healed 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Um, no water, like no pool type situations as it was healing.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so yeah, the fourth one, again, I don't really remember because I was put on high pain medication
Yeah.
because of the intestinal issues that caused all that.
Yeah.
Um, and then multiple intestinal repairs. Um, I forgot how many, but some of the large intestine, some of the small intestine, February 2007 up until July 2008, off and on.
Oh, wow.
So I like three pig lines, different times, because each time one of them went bad or something. Once my veins gave up in both of my arms, I did off my leg vein. They said no. So central line it was.
Yeah.
And that was age 13 and a half to 14th birthday party at UCLA, teenager room.
Mm.
And then back home weeks before I turned 15.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
Yep.
Wow. And so, like, how did you manage like going to school and stuff? Did you do a lot of homeschooling?
During that time frame, I was in seventh grade, eighth grade. Majority of it I did at home, so homeschool. The middle school is across the street,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I did some at the school, but then once I couldn't with my immune system, it's just homebound schooling situation. One of the staff members, teachers, came to my home to help me with mainly English, science, and PE. So
Oh,
not much
okay.
of anything else.
Yeah.
So my PE was walking up the street and back home.
Right. Yeah.
So
Well, at least you got out of PE, Everybody, I hated PE. Hated
yeah,
PE in school.
yeah,
So, but my mom would never let me get out of it. She could have. She could have used it,
yeah,
but she never did.
mm,
Of course,
yeah,
I
and
wasn't, I wasn't on oxygen. I was pretty healthy actually as a
yeah,
kid. So I didn't have an excuse.
yeah. In sixth grade, one PE teacher I had, um, she pushed me to run with the other kids. I told her I can't. I'm not supposed to. So I knew my pH. Didn't
Yeah.
know about my 1.5 lungs, but knew my shortness of breath and those other symptoms. And again, I was kind of off the oxygen again. I
Yeah.
was doing so good on the pH medication, oral medication.
Yeah.
Um, so once teachers had a meeting, IEP meeting with mom kind of, she can't run, the rules for pH and so on. So she kind of drilled that PE teacher to not make me run.
Yeah.
Like I kind of telling the PE teacher, I cannot run. Don't force me.
Yeah. 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 So you just said something about how you didn't know about your 1.5 lung yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Okay. What happened that made you find out about that? Am I jumping too far ahead?
By the time frame, yes, but
Oh,
I learned in 2001, not
okay.
2006, or
Okay.
2021, not 2006.
Okay.
It's a big gap.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a big gap. So, okay. So let's go to the next the next thing because I know there's another thing.
Well, yeah, after all the intestinal repairs and being back home before my 15th birthday, getting my pH back on track, going into high school, ninth grade to 12th grade, was doing really good. Just like two seizures during that in 10th grade, but they were at home or at grandparents' house.
Was
But
there a
again,
reason for that?
um, well, I had a stroke at 7 months old.
Okay.
Um, we don't know if it was connected to the ECMO or anything, so it was months later,
Yeah.
month gap, big gap. So I don't know. Um, but now I know from the right heart cath in 2021 or 2022, around those years, um, that my where the ECMO was, that vein to my brain is very scarred up.
Oh,
It's
okay.
too narrow for the catheter to go down to my heart
Okay.
to get the pH pressure. And
Oh, wow.
they also checked my right or left side. It was also narrowed and not as bad, but still narrow enough for the catheter.
Yeah.
So I just told them just to use my leg again.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you could do that, knowing these are kind of blocked off.
Yeah.
Did not do those. So
Yeah.
groin it was for the right recounts.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
See, so that might connect to my seizure times.
Yeah.
But most recently, uh, as of April or March, when I saw my anti-seizure doctor, she thinks, and while looking at her computer, that's a long overdue brainwave test.
Okay.
I last did it at age 8. I'll be doing it again after I turn 31.
Okay.
But she thinks I could be off the anti seizure medication again since I'm doing so good.
Oh, okay.
And that thinking the oxygen being back on it 24/7 is helping with this.
Yeah.
Then I also think my iron med is also helping with this, making sure enough blood is collecting the oxygen and so on around my body and so on.
Yeah. So n- jumping ahead really far just for a second, if you do
Yeah.
get a lung transplant, is that going to help with all of that also? Because you'll be able to breathe, but are you still going to
So
have worries about, oxygen to the brain or seizures or what, you know,
yeah,
we probably just don't know, right?
probably just don't know. Probably
Yeah.
less iron medication. That
Yeah.
would be helpful.
Mm.
Um, but for these veins being so narrow,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because that has to do more with your heart anyway, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's scar tissue around it,
Right.
making it narrow. So
Oh, yeah. So, and that's really not repairable.
yeah,
Probably not a
or
good idea to touch those.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, where are we at in our timeline now after your seizures?
10th grade was the last 2 seizures, and then keeping stable since until 2015. So 5 years.
Okay.
Uh, Good Friday, right before Easter, had another epilepsy seizure
Oh,
on the bar stool, left forehead to the dining room table.
oh, yeesh.
So, at that type of situation,
Yeah.
um, I did want to go to bed after dinner, but family kind of
Yeah.
was, if I wanted to join a game or just watch them play a game, I'm like, sure, I could watch you guys play a game. Not knowing after eating a pizza and a cup of milk, epilepsy would trigger.
Yeah. So
But
it's
then later on,
probably good that you stayed up.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I was trying to refill the medication, but I didn't know to contact her office to connect to CVS. I thought the other way around,
Oh, okay.
for the CVS to contact her office about refilling the medication.
Well, they're technically supposed to, but
And
do
that was
they?
right before Easter, and I
Yeah.
waited a week of not figuring that out.
Yeah.
So I lasted a week, then
Yeah.
had it.
So
So
are you
I,
nervous to go off of the medicine if they take you off?
um, well, I know my science, so that's one good thing. But just getting to my phone and so on, my
Yeah.
voice drops to no sound. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. So that, yeah. So I have to be around someone that would
Yeah.
be by a phone and so on.
So you had your last seizure at 15, you said?
I was almost 22.
Oh, 22. Sorry.
So I was 21 and a half.
Oh, okay. And that's when you hit your head on the table?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Goose
Okay.
egg for Easter.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Okay,
But yeah,
wow.
she refilled the medication, doubled the dosage. So I was still on the lowest kid dosage as a young adult
Hmm.
with my short height. And even though with the weight gain, it's not enough.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, it's time to double the dosage.
yeah,
So I've been on this dosage for almost 10 years. So after this August brainwave test, I see her again next April. And that's when, if I'm allowed to be off of it or I stay on it, she's going to read the results of the brainwave test. So I'll know
yeah.
in April if
Okay.
graduate off of it or not.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. I mean, hopefully it's one less thing you have to worry about.
It's still kind of a worry of the seizure part, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
if it happens again. But we know it's not caused by the pH, so that's one good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about you finding out about your half a lung, your one and a half lung.
So yeah, I had two common viruses, uh, late or December 2019, early 2020, before
Okay.
COVID hit.
Yeah.
I did not get COVID, but I got twice common virus. Once from child daycare part-time job, and then
Okay.
again from my cousin, her job with like middle school students.
Yeah.
So she brought it to the Nuchols house. We all had it. Grandma gave it back to me.
Oh, yeah.
She was last to have it. And I was like a month apart of having the two. So I knew my
Yeah.
immune system was still building up again.
Right.
But both times I put my oxygen on, so I had it in my room. It grew up that way. It's like, okay, 3 liters maximum, I think, unless I needed more.
Yeah.
Um, but both times at sea level, they kind of showed mountain level of
Okay.
saturation.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not at mountain level, I'm at sea level.
Yeah.
So
And
my
where we didn't talk about this in the beginning, which I should have asked you, but um tell everybody where you're living, like where you're from.
I'm in Torrance, California, so a mile from the beach.
Okay. Nice. Nice. I'm jealous, but okay. Okay, so you're having a hard time with breathing
Mhm.
from the
I
virus.
took I took my notes of where my heart rate's at and oxygen saturation, what tricks I was doing to try to help build up my immune system and get that thing out of me. And noticing from head, nose, throat, and then kind of sitting in the lung zone. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And then seeing those numbers, like,
Yeah.
so I had my cardiovascular checkup that second time around. And I took my oxygen with me. He's like, I did not know you used oxygen. It's like, yeah, I grew up using it.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
like,
he didn't
okay.
know.
No. Dr. Leos did not let him know that.
Yeah.
The pediatric cardiologist did not let the adult cardiovascular doctor know about this.
Okay.
So, um, adult doctor sent me to see pulmonary disease people, doctors. And then that doctor, after the chest CT of my lungs, seeing the one and a half lungs. And then like a month later, the right heart cath, learning about the veins in the neck,
Yeah.
doing it in the groin area. Um, and then getting all of that of agreeing pH pump medication is not probably not good for me at all. It may make my lungs worse. It's like,
Oh.
okay, good to know.
And you had been taking that prior?
No,
Oh, okay.
I know a fellow post transplant patient has.
Okay.
She was on that type of medication, but for me, it's not allowed. And she's a fellow CDHer as well.
Oh, okay.
So I know with the CDH community, newborns, if they show pH still, they can go on the pump medication along with oral medications through their IVs,
Oh, okay.
since they can't really do anything by mouth or G tube.
Yeah.
Um, but they can graduate off the pump med as their lungs develop and grow to normal size.
Oh, okay.
So for me, 1.5 lungs that are scarred up, it may not
Right.
help those very old scars to
Yeah.
break free and open and develop.
Yeah.
So
So you got the CT, and that's when they learned you had not had a CT prior.
I had chest X-rays at Long Beach and where I was born. I'm sure where my CDH surgeon is at. I don't
Yeah.
think she works anymore. Um, but I do not connect to those uh, as a file at all.
Okay.
So UCLA did tests of the blood flow to my lungs, but not a real X-ray or anything. The ER
Wow.
did for when my fourth diaphragm hole was found. So that's how
Okay.
it was found.
Yeah.
But everything of 1.5 lungs was never really seen that way from them, probably, but didn't share to my parents or
So
myself.
it's just it's just surprising to me, I guess maybe because of my own experience, but
Mm-hmm.
I would think that if you have a patient who's on oxygen all the time, on and off,
Yeah,
they would be checking more, doing more x-rays, doing CTs, just a yearly annual checkup or something like that. So I'm
yeah, I
surprised
did
that I never did
PF.
that.
I did PFTs and the bike test, breathing test as a kid. I kind of remember the fourth hole X-ray
Yeah,
since mom thought it was a stomach bug, but it wasn't. It was worse.
yeah, yeah. See, that surprises me too with the PFTs. I remember you saying that last time, and I don't know. I guess it's I'm just basing it off my own experience because I had a PFT all the freaking time. Like
Yeah.
I've had like 526 million PFTs in my life. And so it's just crazy that
Yeah.
maybe California just does things a little differently. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe as a little kid too, but
Hmm.
in different locations of same doctors. I
Yeah.
don't know.
So whenever they found out and they told you, like, what was your reaction? Like, what were you thinking at that time?
Um, well, the doctor that's not I'm not under yet, or again, since he did all the tests, he moved locations as well.
Okay.
Um, but he's like, "Have you ever seen images of your tests?" I'm like, "No, never." So he turned the computer screen, showed me going through the images of my lungs from the CAT scan. It's like,
Yeah.
oh.
You're
So
like,
I'm
oh,
like,
it makes sense now.
yeah. So I took photos on my phone of the imagings that he showed me and
Yeah.
posted it to my CDH image um, photo library.
Yeah.
um, but I do understand what the images did show of 1.5 lungs, since I've always felt my right side working the most, getting tired the most,
Yeah.
while little left side doesn't get that much work into it.
Yeah. It's lazy. Just kidding.
I only felt it at least maybe 2 times or three. Once when I had the common virus the second time from coughing and clearing my throat and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and when I triggered this fifth hernia, 2019 as well, um, from gaining muscle weight.
Okay.
I triggered spontaneous GERD
Oh, okay.
2018 into 2019. So I that also caused me to vomit dash cough up junk,
Yeah.
mainly vomit, but I felt that pressure in my back, more on the right side than the left side,
Yeah.
but the left side still kind of felt it.
Yeah.
Then the last trip I did was 2021 to my brother's home, mountain trip with dad.
Yeah.
POC along,
Yeah.
um, and issues with the battery in the car. But my little left lung felt that trip, the
Oh,
extra
okay.
work.
Yeah.
So I had to adjust my body some and focus on my deep breathing. He told me that too.
Yeah.
Less talking, more deep breathing. It's like,
Hmm.
okay. Just
Yeah.
listen to music.
Yeah. I remember those talks. So, um, how did that mountain trip go? Like, how long was that?
Um, like an all day car ride.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a 3 or 4 day.
No,
Okay.
it was like about 12 hours.
Okay.
So one day trip.
So you were
Left,
exhausted when you got home,
and Lucy
just
was
from
happy I was
breathing.
home.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
But yeah, my body was adjusting back to sea level after the mountain trip.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, just rest,
Yeah.
body, rest.
Yeah. So so now you know about your 1.5 lungs.
Yes.
What did the doctors say? This is what you have. Did they say this is what we're going to be doing differently? Did they say
Um,
maybe work you up for transplant? Like, what was their
well,
reaction?
he set me up. Well, he automatically switched my inhaler since Paul McCourt stopped working. I was doing it for a certain amount of years,
Yeah.
2010 to 2020 at least, since I felt like it wasn't working anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't feel the effect of it helping. My
Right.
shortness of breath came back and so on. So he put me on another medication, Symbicort.
Symbicort. Yeah.
Now I'm on the generic that begins with a B.
Okay.
Came out last July, so it's not super old.
And is that
Um,
helping more?
yeah, it's helping.
Okay.
2 puffs twice a day.
So did they say anything about transplant at all?
Um, he after he started me on the new inhaler, he set me up with pulmonary transplant doctor, and she looked at my file and so on, and uh, basically I look good now. They still gave me the binder, so I have that in my room.
Mm.
Um, but with all 2006 blood flow to the lungs, and then a few PFTs with them, and 6-minute walk test repeatedly each time. I'm keeping stable in a severe way.
Okay.
So
Stable in a severe way.
yeah,
That's a
with one
different
and a
word.
half,
Yeah. That's stable in a severe way. Wow.
with
Okay.
3 pH meds, back on oxygen 24/7.
Yeah.
At first, with them for the 6-minute walk test, automatically back on oxygen 2 liters.
Yeah.
Then, like a year later, 4 liters for walking, not two, four.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah.
I'm still
Well,
on 4 to 3, depending how I feel.
yeah. So I mean, that's still pretty good. I mean, I remember going through mine and I would do the PFTs and the walking test and I wouldn't
Yeah.
need as much. But I remember when they listed me, I was kind of sick. I had an
Oh,
infection going on and I did the lung test and I needed like 10 liters.
oh,
So right then they put me on they put me on the list. And
um,
I thought at the time, I thought, if I wasn't sick, if I wasn't going through an infection and they just waited
yeah,
until I was done with my antibiotics, it probably wouldn't have happened. But
true.
I mean, things work out the way they're supposed to, I guess. So I guess 3 to 4 liters on a walking test is still, well, it's not good. I hate saying it's good, but it's better.
And
It's
slowing
better than
down
it
my
could be.
walking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my oxygen dips low enough to not feel much of any symptoms. My
Yeah.
heart rate jumps. So yeah,
Yeah. So, so let's say down the road, you probably still have a ways to go before you're actually
yeah.
going to be on the transplant list.
This doctor, she thinks age 50. I
Okay.
wasn't 30 yet when she told me and dad this.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, 22, 21 years away.
Yeah.
Now it's more 20 years away, but countdown.
Yeah. Of course.
And then, unless with aging, how my lungs do with aging.
Right.
I'm the same
What about your
size.
heart? Like, is your heart affected at all?
Um, it's better than 2007 because that's when it went crazy.
Oh, okay. Well, so they didn't say, when you get your lung transplanted, you're going to
um,
need a heart transplant too, like a lung and
it's
heart.
just my lungs
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah.
because my pulmonary artery is the most fluctuating.
Yeah.
It works the most.
Yeah.
So then that backflows to the RV for the heart, right ventricle,
Yeah.
to the rest of the body. Other than that, all of the measurement and photoing of the echo,
Yeah.
they're all matching with the one right heart count.
Hmm.
So in the 50s, low 50s, only one super to close 60 for the pH pressure.
Yeah. So are you looking forward to getting a transplant when the time comes? Like, do you want a transplant? Or are you like, no, I'm good right now. I don't want to even worry about that right now.
Um, I know it's in the future, so for now I'm good.
Yeah.
And I grew up this way with 1.5 lungs, but still to be nice to act normal and be more normal.
Yeah.
Um, and being a little more active with everything.
Yeah.
So,
I think back now, and I'm not saying this to change your mind or anything, but I remember before my transplant, I wasn't ready for a transplant. I was good with the oxygen. I felt like I was still able to function. I could go do whatever I wanted.
mm,
I just had to hike it up. And looking back now, I'm so glad that I got that transplant because my life improved so much more
mm,
that I don't have to worry about this oxygen anymore. And I know that you want to live as long as you can with your original organs because
right.
you're not guaranteed a very long life after, depending on, your situation.
Right.
But now thinking back, like I'm so happy I got that when I did because I have such a better quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I had to go back in time, I would have been more ready because I didn't realize what was coming. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
I've been through a lot of operations, but this is the first organ type operation.
Yeah.
Plus the second time being on ECMO. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that
I
too.
never had to do the ECMO, thankfully. And
Mm,
ECMO is hard on your body. So
yeah.
hopefully you get that transplant before that happens again, if that does happen.
Yeah.
So I just, my advice to you is just like everybody says, just live as long as you can with your organs and they'll tell you when it's time. And luckily you already have established with the transplant team and they can follow you and kind of, keep an eye on you. So,
Yeah. As soon as my follow up with a primary pulmonary doctor, I think he reached out to another transplant doctor since the first one, I think, was for patients.
oh yeah.
So I'll see about that real soon in a few weeks.
So are you said you're North California? So are you
I'm I'm southern South Bay, so it's
oh Southern? Okay, so
SoCal.
UCLA. Oh, SoCal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a great hospital, so you're in good hands. So I've talked to a lot of people from there. So
Yeah.
well, I'm so thankful that you came on to tell your story because you've been through so much through your whole life and you are just one of the strongest people I've met. And I'm thankful that you are doing what is it? Stable, severely stable, is that what it is?
Yeah. Severely stable.
Severely stable. You keep up the good work. Hopefully, eventually it'll just be stable, like normal
Yeah.
stable.
Yeah.
But no, I'm glad you're doing okay. And I wish the best for you. And I want to hear back from you next year and see how you're doing. And you can come on and give us an update.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. See
All
ya.
right. Thanks, Morgan. You have a great
You're
day.
welcome. You too.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Pre to Post Transplant Podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Facebook. Oh, and if you have not signed up to be an organ donor, please visit www.organdonor.gov and register today. You too can save lives.